By mid-2023, Russian aviation regulators quietly issued maintenance directives, revealing what industry insiders already suspected. Entire aircraft families were being stripped for parts to keep others flying. Satellite imagery showed rows of grounded Airbus A320s and Boeing 737s parked on remote aprons across Siberia, their engines and avionics cannibalized to sustain operational fleets. The crisis traced back to March 2022, when Russia's Ministry of Transport authorized airlines to retain approximately 500 leased Western aircraft, despite contractual obligations requiring their return to lessors by March 28th. What began as a jurisdictional standoff spiraled into a systemic collapse driven by certification breakdowns, parts embargoes, and insurance exclusions. By 2018, Russia's civil aviation strategy looked like a model of efficiency. Yuri Slusar and Vitaly Savelyev had orchestrated a fleet modernization campaign built entirely on Western imports. The Airbus A320neo offered 15% better fuel economy than domestic alternatives, while the Boeing 737-800s came with established global service networks. Even the Sukhoi Superjet 100 depended on powerjet engines manufactured in France. The strategy was brilliant. It leveraged global supply chains, avoided costly domestic development, and competed with Turkish Airlines and Gulf carriers. But every component, software update, and maintenance manual was anchored outside Russian jurisdiction. Confidence peaked between 2019 and early 2020. At the Paris Air Show, Airbus executives celebrated order expansions while Aeroflot finalized codeshare agreements. Fleet utilization rates climbed above 90%. Yet maintenance logs told a quieter story. Sukhoi Superjet 100. Dispatch reliability reports flagged recurring engine delays, with powerjet service centers struggling to meet demand. The aviation press focused on expansion plans, not the fine print in maintenance contracts that required original equipment, manufacturer authorization for every major repair. Since 2014, following Crimea's annexation, Russia had pursued import substitution, but aviation remained stubbornly dependent. The MC-21 narrow-body program relied on composite wing materials from Japan and flight control systems from Western suppliers. Rosaviatsia maintained airworthiness standards aligned with International Civil Aviation Organization frameworks, but it lacked independent certification pathways. Every maintenance manual, parts catalogue, and software revision tied Russian operators to Western original equipment manufacturers. When February 2022 arrived, nothing was built to stand alone. February 28, 2022 changed everything. EU sanctions triggered automatic clauses in hundreds of aircraft lease agreements. AirCap alone held nearly 150 planes in Russian operations. Savelyev, now Transport Minister, faced an impossible choice. Returning aircraft meant losing roughly 40% of commercial fleet capacity overnight. Retaining them meant voiding lease contracts and isolating operators from Western certification systems. On March 8th, Russian authorities issued directives allowing airlines to re-register foreign leased aircraft under domestic certificates. Schedules continued, passengers travelled, revenue flowed. But lessors declared the aircraft stolen. Insurance underwriters issued exclusion notices, and the clock started on a catastrophe. By April 2022, Russian airlines operated under a paradox. The aircraft were physically intact but legally severed from their maintenance ecosystems. Boeing and Airbus announced immediate suspension of technical support. Service bulletins, software patches, and component certification updates stopped flowing. Rosaviatsia responded with directives allowing domestic facilities to approve repairs without original equipment, manufacturer validation. Maintenance requires more than engineering skill. It demands proprietary diagnostic tools, software, authorization codes, and parts with traceable serial numbers. When a hydraulic pump failed, replacement required not just a compatible component, but documentation proving certification standards. Airlines faced a choice: ground the aircraft or install available components with adjusted documentation. Business pressure made the choice inevitable. 6 months into isolation, engineers described systematic component pooling, pulling working parts from grounded aircraft to keep others flying. Boeing and Airbus ceased all spare parts shipments and technical consultations. Procurement logs showed facilities ordering generic components from China and Turkey and attempting to reverse engineer compatibility. Dispatch reliability declined. Pilot incident logs documented increasing minor system failures, including pressurization warnings, navigation display glitches, and hydraulic fluctuations. By late 2022, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency formally revoked airworthiness certificates, citing maintenance traceability failures. The Federal Aviation Administration followed with parallel restrictions. Insurance underwriters issued policy exclusions. AR worthiness is not binary, it is a continuous documentation chain. Without recognition from the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, no European airport would accept Russian-certified aircraft. The fleet could fly, but the business model could not. Early 2023 brought the decision that made recovery nearly impossible. Russian authorities chose domestic continuity over international positioning. Aeroflot cancelled Western European routes while adding Central Asian frequencies. But aircraft designed for 12 to 15-year lifespans were now pushed harder with constrained parts access. An A320neo worth $45 million in 2021 became stranded capital, with voided insurance, questionable maintenance records, and no legal path to international markets. AerCap alone projected losses exceeding $2 billion. The Sukhoi Superjet 100 depended on powerjet engines, a joint venture with France's Safran. When sanctions severed that partnership, engine overhaul turnaround times stretched indefinitely. The MC-21 required replacing Collins Aerospace flight controls, Pratt and Whitney engines, and dozens of Western components with domestic alternatives. What should have been an 18-month program stretched toward years. Aeroflot's order book for Western aircraft existed only on paper, with manufacturers having reallocated production slots. By mid-2023, airlines confronted the capacity trap. Aircraft grounded for parts meant cancelled routes, but replacing capacity proved extraordinarily expensive. When one aircraft is cannibalized, total capacity drops, while maintenance complexity multiplies. Financial filings showed maintenance costs rising 40% year over year, while revenue declined. Training added dysfunction. Cruise type rated on A320s needed expensive recertification for different aircraft types. Late 2023 brought reputation collapse. Credit risk reports documented deteriorating positions, lease obligations in default, insurance disputes pending, and operational metrics declining. Competitors moved into the vacuum. Turkish Airlines expanded Central Asia frequencies. Emirates added Moscow capacity. Chinese carriers increased their presence in Russia. Market share shifts compounded losses, not just current revenue but future positioning. 2024 revealed full legal exposure. Lessors filed lawsuits seeking tens of billions in compensation. Russian airlines responded that returning aircraft would violate domestic laws. Lessors could not recover assets, could not collect payments, and could not pursue normal remedies. On the operational side, pilots adapted to maintenance cycles that were unthinkable in 2021. Dispatch briefings routinely discussed deferred maintenance items and acceptable equipment inoperabilities. Satellite imagery from late 2024 showed rows of aircraft parked on remote Siberian aprons, some with engines removed. Internationally operable fleet counts had collapsed more than 40% from 2019 baselines. The lessors' order books were being rewritten, reallocating delivery slots to airlines in India, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. What began as a decision to retain aircraft for operational continuity had cascaded through certification systems, maintenance networks, and insurance frameworks, transforming efficiency into paralysis.